All right, so there's an aftermath of what happened. An aftermath of what happened with Donald Trump here in Chicago. And the whole media seems to be having a meltdown about it. So first, I want to pull up this article here from Black Club Chicago. So let's talk about it, because now Trump's off-the-rails interview tarnishes Black journalist conventions, attendees say. So Chicago outraged reporters blasted the National Association of Black Journalists Wednesday. Furious, the organization welcomed former President Trump to an event where he made false claims, attacked journalists, and upended the schedule, to which I have to say that's how much of that is really true. Okay. I mean, and again, the whole idea of journalism and interviews is that you're supposed to be interviewing high profile people, getting to the facts. And if you did invite him, then there was a reason why you invited him, to get the views. Let's face it. It's not like, oh, how could we invite Trump? It's like, hey, let's bring more eyeballs to our event. Let's invite Donald Trump. But you are also supposed to invite Kamala Harris, which, again, she never showed up. So the National Association of Black Journalists invited Republican presidential candidate to answer questions about the most pressuring issues facing the Black community. During the Q&A panel on Wednesday, day one of the convention, held this year at the Hilton, Chicago, the theme of this year's convention was Winds of Change, Journalism over Disinformation, which I have to say, corporate media, you have not been consistent with giving people the facts. Trump appearance started over an hour late to the event, and the convention quickly devolved into chaos. ABC News' Rachel Scott, one of the panel moderators, asked Trump to address the elephant in the room and answer why Black voters should trust the presidential nominee after he claimed former President Barack Obama was an American citizen, told former Congresswomen of color to go back where they came from, called Black district attorneys animals, and attended dinners with white nationalists, to which I have to say, a lot of our fantastic politicians in Washington, D.C., both Democrat and Republican, have done all the same. Trump called the question a rude introduction, and ABC, a fake news network, to some of the cheers and laughs from the crowd. So that means some people actually liked it. They liked the Trump event. They liked that Trump was there. Trump called the question, and again, over the next 37 minutes, Trump made false claims about the Democratic nominee, Kamala Harris's racial identity, called himself the best president for the Black population since Abraham Lincoln, and blamed people coming into our country for taking Black and Hispanic jobs, and attributed his tardiness to the convention's broken equipment. To which I would have to say, why would, again, if that was the case, did anyone do any sound check, video check? When you're doing an event, you should at least be aware of that. Some members of the Black Journalists Association and those viewing the talk slammed the event organizers for platforming a politician who has frequently degraded Black communities and Chicago. Others said the talk was a disservice to convention attendees who were there to network and develop professionally. Well, then, hey, no. You need to have eyeballs to your event. Now, corporate media also had its response. So let's give it for Joy Reid, because so many people are suffering from Trump derangement syndrome. And it's just interesting seeing the meltdown.
I also just want to say one quick thing about this invitation to the president and board of NABJ. Y'all got played. Donald Trump showed up at the convention for exactly 3 reasons. 1, to try to dispel the notion that he's scared to debate a Black woman, a presumption one can draw from his refusal to commit to debating VP Harris, who, again, for those in the back, is a Black and Asian woman. It's also why he lost it like a grumbly senior at the retirement home who didn't get his Jell-O dessert when ABC's Rachel Scott challenged him to answer basic questions. And how likely is it that he would have shown up at all if the lady from the network that paid a $787 million legal settlement for spreading the big lie wasn't included on the panel? Second, to steal the attention that Vice President Kamala Harris has hijacked from him because she's just more interesting. And
all politicians are the same. They're all egomaniacs. But, folks, let's have democracy. And I highlight the word mock. Let's have democracy in the chat. Do you find Kamala Harris interesting? Type 1 for yes, kid. This is historic. The first woman president of these United States. Shame on you. Type 2, no, she's not interesting. It's more interesting looking at her past and how she fumbled her way to the top, by any means necessary. That's what's interesting. I wonder how many 2s will be in the chat. I wonder. You know, how about this one? Number 3. I don't care.
And her support is more joyous and rooted in popular American culture. And 3, to create clips to play for his very white, very right-wing MAGA fan base of him standing up to the blacks.
You're the one that's saying it, but I've seen a lot of Black Trump supporters, Hispanic Trump supporters. Some of the reports that I've been doing before Biden dropped out was showing that Black voters, Latino voters are considering maybe voting for Trump, not voting, or voting independent. Do you think that's going to change now that Kamala's in? Because if people do their homework, and look, if you really look into Kamala's history, while you still can before it gets scrubbed off the internet, they'll realize that she is just as corrupt as any other neoliberal politician.
Joining me now is April Ryan, White House correspondent for The Grio and an MSNBC contributor. April, deep breaths. I watched that today in absolute.
And Travers Wolf says, joy making old person jokes. That's very effing hypocritical. Because remember when people were making old people jokes about Joe Biden? And MSNBC and CNN and ABC and CBS were quick to say, don't do that. That's being mean.
Absolute horror. You were one of the people who spoke out against this invitation. Talk to me about how in the world it happened in the first place.
Well, when you host a convention, you're supposed to invite interesting people. Donald Trump is an interesting person. Hell, he almost lost his life. I mean, that's a high-profile target person. And notice they kept on talking about just some of the things Trump has said in the past, but he didn't ask him anything about policy. They didn't ask him anything about policy, nothing about what he's running on.
Well, first of all, the NABJ, an advocacy group for Black journalists, the Black press, extends invitations every election cycle to the presidential candidates. But for this cycle, this special and unique cycle, Donald Trump was invited. But we know the story, and this is where I'm going to put the butt in. We know the story. We've seen the movie. We spit the popcorn out and all of that. We know who he is to the Black press, how he has berated us, how his minions have berated us, from himself to Tucker Carlson, who have come after me, Yamiche Alcindor, and you, Joy. And so many others, like Sonny Hostin from The View, Donna Brazile, Abby Phillips, so many.
What about all the times when the liberal press went after progressives and independents? What about all the times when you had liberal politicians and Vote Blue No Matter Who sycophants go after people who were challenging them critically, like progressives and independents? I remember the waves of cancel culture and censorship. Yes, there was people being censored who were libertarians and conservatives, but what's being swept under the rug is what happened to a lot of progressives and independents, which again, I wish people would focus on it. I wish people would talk about it. But wait a minute. There's another thing I want to bring up here. Trump stalled Black journalist interview over fact-checking. He didn't stall anything. This whole entire debate. Here, let's go and play this video again, because this is something that, again, I want to give a huge shout out to Nico House. He said he didn't see this fuller, larger minute segment where this whole thing gets started. It started off hostile. Now, Trump, he's going to be Trump. As soon as you start instigating stuff with him, he'll meet you at that level. He will do that. That's just who he is. In my personal opinion, this whole entire event was one big shite show. But we all know how corporate media runs its operations. Did Trump walk into a trap? Yes. Did Trump have a meltdown? No. Was Trump being racist and bigoted? No. Was Trump just being a jagoff and an asshole? Yeah, he was. Nothing new. We have seen this before.
Barack Obama saying that they were not born in the United States, which is not true. You have told 4 congresswomen of color who were American citizens to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabbit to describe Black district attorneys. You've attacked Black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking Black supporters to vote for you, why should Black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question so in such a horrible manner. First question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network. And I think it's disgraceful that I came here in good spirit. I love the black population of this country. I've done so much for the black population of this country, including employment, including opportunity zones with Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, which is one of the greatest programs ever for black workers and black entrepreneurs. I've done so much. And, you know, and I say this, historically.
I'm going to pause here. You know, why did some of the audience members laugh and applaud? Why did people show up? Here's the thing. If this was such a controversial thing, MSNBC, why did so many attendees still show up? Why did so many people show up? If this was so bad, if Trump being there was just a terrible thing, why did the whole room fill up? It's almost as if they wanted to go because Trump is a showman. And I made this very clear in 2016 when I was explaining this to people. A lot of friendships I lost. Donald Trump is a showman. He knows how to manipulate the media. He knows how to manipulate crowds. And he knows how to get people to show up because of his name. And when the man puts on a show, you're going to be entertained. That's just what he does. This is nothing new. It's just new outrage, and this is a way for MSNBC to start talking down to the liberal voters. Remember those white women? I'm not going to play that video. White women for Kamala and those white dudes for Kamala. And it's nothing but passive-aggressive talking down, especially that one lady who's was a teacher or something like, we got to know our privilege. We got to know this and we got to know that. And that same white lady would probably go to the entire audience and say like, you guys, I know you want to see Trump, but you can't do it because you have to understand that Trump's a very bad man.
Black colleges and universities were out of money. They were stone cold broke. And I saved them and I gave them long-term financing and nobody else was doing it. I think it's a very rude introduction. I don't know exactly why you would do something like that. And let me go a step further. I was invited here and I was told my opponent, whether it was Biden or Kamala, I was told my opponent was going to be here. It turned out my opponent isn't here. You invited me under false pretense. And then you said, you can't do it.
Now, people say Trump's a liar. But when he made a statement like there, I believe it. I believe him. This was the trap. This was a trap. You know, you don't make a statement like that. Now, who knows? Again, Trump likes to exaggerate things, but that is a pretty bold statement to make. And knowing how this whole event went down and the way corporate media is trying to present it, number one, people still showed up. That's the thing. Number two, there were people in that crowd cheering and applauding Trump. And number three, these three moderators, say whatever you will about them, they should have been more focused on asking policies than these personal questions. I mean, you're not going to get anything new unless you are purposely trying to antagonize them.
With Zoom. Well, you know, where's Zoom? She's going to do it with Zoom and she's not coming. And then you were half an hour late, just so we understand. I have too much respect for you to be late. They couldn't get their equipment working or something was
President,
wrong.
I would love
I think
if you
it's
can
a
answer
very
the question
nasty
on your rhetoric
question.
and why you
I have
believe that
answered
black
the
voters
question.
should trust you with another
I
4
have
years.
been the best president for the black population since Abraham Lincoln. That's my answer.
Better than President Johnson,
my
who signed the
answer.
Voting Rights
And
Act.
for you to start off a question and answer period, especially when you're 35 minutes late because you couldn't get your equipment to work in such a hostile manner, I think it's a disgrace. I really do.
Let me just ask a follow-up, sir.
And so what can we take away from this? Even after the day after this whole event taking place here in Chicago, the media wants to focus on Trump being bigoted or sexist or racist or all these things. I'm not surprised on who Donald Trump is. And I'm not surprised on how corporate media is trying to capitalize off of this. But what this whole entire thing here, and look, I you know, everybody knows I love my city. I think there's still some hope for Chicago. Yes, it's got its problems. However, this whole thing in Chicago with Trump was a nothing burger. I don't think this was the end of Donald Trump, because guess what? After this weekend, it'll be a whole new week. And there's going to be something else that will capture our attention. Why? Because everyone has an iPhone, cell phone, smartphone. Everyone's on the internet and everyone's posting something. Don't worry. There's going to be something new around the corner. But as for this election cycle, what Democrats better hope for is that they can build up enough enthusiasm for Harris so that she can win. But the thing about Kamala Harris, and as soon as people start looking more into her history, they're going to realize that she is just as a flawed candidate as Trump. But the thing is, Democrats, you're stuck with her. So we'll see how this convention plays out and how exactly you're going to be controlling the narrative, because there's a lot of protesters, Democrats, that promise to be there and to show up and to protest the DNC convention. Let's see how you play that out.